Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with NFMLA magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center and I'm delighted to be joined with Nedda with her movie Unibrow. Let's take a look at the clip.
لیلا جان قربونت برم یه خورده عجله کن مامان این دفعه دیر کنیم جمشید منو میکشه ها را بیافت لیلا شنیدی چی گفتم؟
Mom, I heard you. Leave me alone.
خب چرا جواب نمیدی؟ ترسیدم
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the NewFilmmakers LA family. And thank you for Unibrow, Nedda.
Thank you. It's too kind.
Do you have a good time?
I'm having the best time.
Yeah?
I'm so glad that I came.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, this has been a really like magical like weekend and I'm sorry to be leaving.
Oh, remind our audience where all the way you came from.
Toronto.
All the way from Toronto to be with us. So no, thank you so much, honestly. Extra special, obviously, because this wasn't a celebration of filmmakers from Canada as well, which is wonderful. But thank you for making the trip to be here. I love your film so much. I've got so many questions, but for those that haven't seen it, tell us the brief synopsis.
Yeah, so my film Unibrow is about this young Iranian-Canadian high school student who wants to get rid of her unibrow and ends up making things worse, and then has to go to school with like blotch on her on her face, which is of course like incredibly traumatic for anybody who's been in that situation. And while she's there, she actually makes friends with a new student who is originally from Iran. And the course of like the story sort of unfolds, but it dives into Iranian heritage and like accepting your culture and really like broadening your view. There's like themes of like female friendship in it.
It's amazing, and you brought these characters to life, and it was so lovely to see their stories unfold, and obviously centered around this brilliant young wonderful actor as well. Like she was so good. But tell us a little bit about firstly where was the inspiration for you to turn this idea into a film?
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, this was my first script, and
That's insane.
Well, I mean, I think I just like was trying to learn the ropes of like screenwriting one, but also of short filmmaking specifically.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like it's a real like short films are such a wonderful medium because everything counts, and everything is a ripple effect. So I was just sort of like, okay, you're like inciting incident sort of has to happen in your first scene, and then what goes down from there. So that was like largely the sort of like, okay, like we got this like young girl and she messes up her brows and now she has to deal with those consequences. In the first drafts of my script, it was sort of like a more like, in retrospect, kind of like linear sort of turnaround of like, she doesn't like her unibrow. By the end of the film, she's gonna learn to love it. And then I started showing it around to like others and like got feedback and like I'm really grateful to like the community that I have back home, which is like a bunch of like really amazing like artists of color that like always read each other's scripts and like, you know, like provide like just sort of like critique and just like nuanced takes. And the feedback that I got was that like Iranis are always touching their brows. Like it's not exactly like as simple as to just be like, we love our unibrow, like we're gonna stick to it. It's more like the act of like amending your unibrow or like of changing your brows is kind of uniquely like Irani or like Middle Eastern. Like why don't you lean into that or embrace it? And that opened up a whole like kind of like world of like, oh yeah, this is like such like a important and like just deep dived cultural take that could go into it.
I was still taken back from the fact you said you're learning the ropes. I'm like, I think you learned the ropes. I mean, honestly, like if that's your first script, my goodness me. I'm so glad that you brought in so many different, you know, levels and themes and respects to cultures and experiences in this film that was so important. And you centered around these characters that were just like alive. Like you brought these wonderful characters alive. How did you go about bringing your cast together? I'm kind of in love with them all. And how was that experience for you?
Oh man, it was great. It was so amazing. Some of the things like, I mean, it's really hard to make a film, period. But I think like in setting out to make Unibrow, one of the things that was like a priority to me was that I really want this to be a film that my community can watch and feel represented in. That was like kind of like the baseline for me. And so the result of that was that I needed people who sort of like could represent those sort of like characters. So I needed like an Iranian Canadian girl who had like very clearly like a Western accent when she spoke Farsi. And I also needed somebody who had obviously kind of come from Iran and so had like a much more like, you know, like smoother and like specifically Irani accent when they spoke Farsi. And I couldn't compromise on that because so much of the script was in Farsi. But the challenge with that, and something I got told like pretty early on, was that like this is going to be really hard to like gather these people. But it was through a lot of word of mouth and a lot of reach out and a lot of just like community like reliance that like suddenly these incredible talents started coming out. And I'm so pleased with the final cast. Like they could not have been more talented.
And they're amazing. And you know, it's such a wonderful experience to work with actors, right? But also, you know, when you're in this kind of camaraderie experience where there's an essence of relating to each other, to their experiences, everything. How was that working with the actors? Like what's your process as a director? What was it like? What kind of process did you go with them?
Honestly, it sort of feels, at least for me, like the beauty of film is that it's a collaborative art. Like if you're not gonna collaborate, like go, I don't know, write a novel or like, you know, like write something like more like solo and like isolated. But like I gained so much from being able to like rely on like the cast and crew who really fundamentally understood the story. Some of like the best memories that I have in building this project was like during rehearsals, we would all sit around and we would read the script, and I can't write Farsi. And so I had like an idea of like how I wanted things to sound because I can speak it, of course, but I can't write it. And the like actors needed it to be written so that they could be practicing. So our initial rehearsals were actually table reads, and then we discussed how we would say these lines. And that really was the first time. Like I'm so actually grateful for that setup because I think it allowed not only me to find my director voice with being like, I think it needs to be like this, or this is how I imagine this character saying this, but it also allowed the actors to really be able to own the characters and feel more situated in them because they understood the rules, and they had to understand the rules because they were helping me effectively by building out the script in Farsi.
Oh my goodness, what an experience though, hey?
It was
it's
so
amazing.
cool. By the end, like there were so many moments like on set, and I really recommend like rehearsals as if ever like possible, because by the time we were on set, they understood the characters better than I did. And it really felt like, you know, like I would give like a direction and they'd be like, yeah, but like, what about this? And then I'd be like, no, never mind, do that.
Well, in terms of the light of the story, and there's so much pressure on young people when you're growing up, particularly young girls, and like and anything that makes you feel like you stand out differently from the rest is a lot, you know. And I thought you just encapsulated her heart and what she was going through so well. And it was almost painful to watch because you're like, oh my goodness, she's going through so much as it is, you know, and then, you know, incorporate what family expects of you, how we never listen to our parents, but there's also other things on top of that as well. And obviously meeting someone that was actually, you know, was born in Iran as well as, and that special sisterhood dynamic as well. Like how, like what I love is the arc of the story where you kind of brought everything together and a real appreciation for, you know, your appearance and what it actually truly means. Was that something that was kind of important to you in the sense of the story?
I very much so. I remember that period of my life as being incredibly lonely, and really not being able to find like comfort either entirely at home or at school, and then feeling like I needed to distance one in order to have the other. And I think a lot of the second generation diaspora kids really like, you know, like have to overcome that and like have to deal with that. And there's not a whole lot. I mean, I like to think it's getting better now maybe, but like there's not a whole, especially when I was growing up, like there's not a whole lot of representation that allows you to sort of like feel like, you know, like whether like you're watching it like in media or whatnot, that feels like this is just like something that we go through. And this is like, you know, it's going to be okay, or like, you know, like it doesn't have to be so doom or gloom one way or another. But at the time, especially, I could really remember feeling just absolutely desolate and lonely throughout that whole process. And so a lot of like the film was sort of like, what did I wish could happen? And how, like, how would that have like changed things, or how would that have like altered the course maybe?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I mean, you captured all of that in the end, and I think it was just nice to have this sort of togetherness, you know, at the end, you know, an appreciation, and, you know, it came full circle to sort of like love yourself, and it was so great when you have someone that you can connect with, that you can identify with, that you can relate to in the story, and how important that is. And I just kept thinking as well, like people watching this, just, you know, hopefully people get to see it, either they can have experienced this, relate to it, and how important that is as well. What's it been like having it on the big screen? Like, what's that experience? We loved it last night. What was it like?
Oh my gosh, it's been incredible. Like I said, I think like when I first set out to make the film, I really like the priority was that like, okay, this is something that I can like show at a family gathering, and like, yeah, no one's ever going to be entirely happy, but at least like, you know, like the conversation is going to be like, yeah, but like I can't understand what this is. This person is saying, or like this isn't an Irani actor and they're playing an Irani role. Like that was sort of like my priority. So like I was just like, I really want the Irani community to watch this and at least feel like it was done, it was doing them justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I didn't expect was for it to, in sort of like maybe like pursuing that, for it to come out as like a universal story. And for like everybody to sort of like, I guess like take pieces away from it. And that's been really incredible and special.
Yeah.
And it's really made me realize just how smart audiences are. They don't necessarily need like things like hit on the head, or like, you know, like to have something overly explained. Like they are very content with watching something like authentic kind of play out, and understanding the deeper messages that kind of come into that. And that was really, really like that's been such a pleasant and lovely surprise. And that's one of the like things that I'm consistently surprised by when after like a screening, when like people come up to me to like ask questions who aren't necessarily Irani. That being said, like there's been plenty of times as well where I've been like screening somewhere and I've been like, oh, like I don't know, like I don't know what to make of like the audience. Like I was just in like Padova, Italy, at the River Film Festival, really just sort of like being like, I don't even know if people will understand this or like how this will resonate. And I just, as soon as the screening ended, I was surrounded by these Irani students who were international students over there, and was able to like make friends and like spend the day there. So it's really, I think like, you know, something that like it feels like I was trying to do with the film was show how friendship can make your like world bigger. And the film's been doing that for me pretty consistently.
That's, well, credit to you, because it's why you should be a filmmaker. It's why that you're a great storyteller, because, you know, we brought these characters alive, and we're all there in it watching them, and we wanted more. Like, my goodness, you left us wanting more. What's next? What's next going on, Nedda? What's going on? Where are you taking us next?
Oh, geez. Where am I taking myself now? What did I get myself into? I'm really looking forward to keep writing and to keep directing. And I really, really want to keep telling messy diaspora stories. I want to get like better and better at that. And I love
messy diaspora stories. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think it is. Like, you know, like it's just like I grew up myself in like a very predominantly immigrant community, and we're a hot mess, and and I love that. Like that's like my food, bread and butter, like as a director. So
I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, listen, I'm ready for the next world you take us into. The next place, and so I'm so glad that you got so much success from this film because you deserve it, honestly. So, you know, well done. I'm not even done with the characters in Unibrow. Like, I'm sad that that was a short film and it's over. So if anyone ever extend those characters, I'm just saying, okay, because they were great.
Okay.
So yeah, good
to
job.
know.
But listen, thank you so much for coming all the way from Toronto. Welcome to New Filmmakers LA, and we're so thankful you brought your film to us. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.